Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. I'm Dr. Catherine Harmon Toomer. I am a family medicine and community health physician and founder of Total Weight Care Institute and Your Light Wellness and Weight Care Physician Group. And I'm here uh, hoping you all can join in. And please let me know if you're listening. Say hello and let me know where you're listening from. Um, so I'm trying to see where. Oh, my Wi-Fi is a little unstable for some reason. This app is not picking up my Wi-Fi very well. So if I do start getting a little slower, getting a little wonky, I will come back. So just sit with me. Um, Hello, Marcia. Thank you for joining from Barbados. Um, so um, I am Dr. Catherine Toomer. I talk a lot about health, wellness, and weight loss. And I want to invite you all to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's going to be my New Year's resolution, my Christmas present to myself, and I'm just hoping that you all can help me. And the way you can help me is by subscribing if you're listening right now. That's at youtube.com/Dr. Toomer. Or you can pass my videos on to family members and friends and ask them to subscribe as well. I have had over 500 shares of my videos, thousands of hours of views, and thousands of people viewing even each week. And I would love to have that translate into followers. So thank you for your help, and I appreciate it. So today, what I'm going to talk about, though, is natural weight loss. I hear this thrown around a lot. People saying, I lost weight naturally. And often when I ask, well, what do you mean by you lost weight naturally? What they really mean is they just didn't get a prescription, but they're still using something. Um, and so what natural really means is that you're using nothing other than what your body's given you. And essentially what that means is using your muscles and using your mouth. So when you lose weight naturally, what that means is that you've increased your muscle mass, you've increased your metabolism by using your muscle mass, and you've dropped your carbohydrate load or your glucose load on your body by dropping your carbohydrates, or at least the percentage of carbohydrates. That is essentially the only natural way you can lose weight. Now, if you are taking a substance of any kind, whether prescribed or not, whether a tea, a powder, a prescription, that is assisted weight loss. So any weight loss afforded from getting your health in order by using any substance at all is assisted weight loss. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that's what it is. Because honestly, and we often use the word natural as if natural means better. Arsenic is natural. Cocaine is natural, comes from a plant. Amphetamine is natural, comes from a plant. Methamphetamine is natural, comes from a plant. Botulism, mushrooms that are toxic. Sugar is natural, and we know what sugar does. I talk about that a lot. And so something being natural doesn't necessarily mean it's good. And in fact, often what happens is people use the word natural because it tricks us into thinking it's something good, when in fact it could be something dangerous. Or it very usually means it's unregulated, has not been tested by the FDA, and therefore it could be anything. And so the way and so really what natural simply means when it's a substance that you're taking, what that means is it hasn't been tested for human consumption by the FDA. It has not been approved as being safe for human consumption. And so that's not necessarily a problem. Food is, it's called the Food and Drug Administration. The things you put in your mouth that are tested for human consumption go through the FDA. Not all. So even things that are over the counter have at some point been tested by the FDA to prove that it is safe for human consumption. It cannot be sold otherwise. And so, but often what happens is that you read the reports around the stuff that's being used, and it will say it was scientifically tested. It's a known to cause benefit to humans. And when you dig a little deeper, there is no mention of what the actual scientific tests have been. They're very vague, or they use a lot of flowery language, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you understand statistics or epidemiology. The other is that they will say it contains a substance that's known to cause X, or it's known to give this benefit, but it doesn't actually tell you how much of it is in there or what else is in there. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can determine if something is relatively safe and whether it's acting as a medication or if it's acting like a supplement, because that makes a difference. So anything that is ingested, anything we put in our mouth has to be processed, and it has to be removed from our body in some way. Either it comes out in a bowel movement, it is detoxified by our liver, or it's flushed out from our kidneys. That's it. There's no other way to get rid of things that we put in our mouth or put in our system. So when something is unregulated, it could easily be toxic to our liver, or our liver becomes toxic from trying to remove it from our bloodstream. Or our kidneys, recognizing it as something that it shouldn't be in our body, will flush it out. And usually that flushing causes some level of dehydration or cell shrinking, which then leads to a drop in size or a drop in weight. And so it gives the impression of weight loss when in fact it's simply water loss. When we know in medications there are certain amounts that cause benefit, and when you have beyond that amount, it is called toxic. It has toxicity. And so when it comes to unregulated teas and powders and other things, we really just don't know what's in them. However, there are some clues as to whether it is acting like a medication or if it's acting like a supplement. So essentially, and then I'll talk, well, first I'm going to talk a little bit about what natural means and what people often refer to as natural. When you use your body's natural, given functions to reduce your weight, to get healthy, usually that's through eating a certain way, exercising a certain way, having certain level of mindfulness, getting enough sleep, getting enough water, kind of paying attention to your thoughts and your mental makeup. All those things are things you can do without any other substance other than the things that we just naturally need in order to keep our body going, like food and fluids. But also understanding that if you're doing that to treat an underlying medical condition, it can be done, but it is not the most efficient way of doing it. And often what happens, our body reaches a point of threshold. And when it reaches that point of threshold, it is very difficult to pull back. Once we've gone over that hump, that bell curve, it's hard to come back. And so often what happens is that in trying to do things without assistance, without any medication, we'll fight against the process rather than doing it much easier and much more safely. And so I say it's kind of like this. You want to get from point A to point B. The natural way of doing that is walking, because that is what your body has with no assistance of any kind, is your legs. And so you walk. Walking will get you there eventually if you make it. If it's too far to go, or it is too far to maintain that level or the speed in which you're walking, eventually you'll fail and you'll stop and you'll sit down and you won't go any farther. So that is the natural way of doing things. And sometimes if it's a short enough distance or if it's an easy enough walk, you can get there eventually just by using your natural efforts, and that's your legs. What assistance is, there are many levels. One level would be using a bicycle. You can ride your bike there and it will get you there faster. But if you're on a highway riding a bike, it still may be too far to ride. It still may put you in some danger because there's cars whipping by. It may be also that you have to worry about flat tires and other things and whatever. And so, yes, it may get you farther a little faster than walking, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will be safe, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you will actually get there. So then there's the car. Some may say there's certain cars that are like medication. Medication is kind of like a car. It gets you to where you want to go a little bit faster. And it gets you from point A to point B faster. It gets you in a vehicle that you know is safe because it's been tested, it's been regulated, and so we know. And then there's different kinds of cars. There's slow cars and there's fast cars. So there's some medications that are better than others. And the best medications are airplanes. They get you from point A to point B very safely, very quickly, and give you the exact same results without you worrying about giving up, without getting injured, without losing hope, without losing motivation, and all of that. And so that is the difference between natural versus assisted versus medicated. And there's no one that's better than the other. It's just simply that one, they just change in levels of efficiency and change in levels of definitive results. It's a lot easier to get lost walking than it is driving, than it is flying, especially when you put the destination in your GPS, so to speak. And so, and I'll get to your comment in a minute, Kawana. Thank you for commenting. And so that is why, and the other thing that I kind of take a bit of issue with when people say natural, there's a little bit of judgment behind it. It's like, well, I did it the natural way. And maybe because natural is a dog whistle to people who require medication for their treatment. And it's definitely a dog whistle for people who are on GLP-1 medications when it comes to weight loss. And so, because that is often what's thrown in our faces for saying, well, I did it naturally. Well, this is the thing. If you're using any substance to get to where you're going, it is assisted. It's not natural. And natural means you're not using any other substance to get to your point. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, that is absolutely fine, because a lot of times these substances have good vitamins in them that we normally don't get. They have micronutrients that we are no longer in our food. And sometimes they're packaged in a way that makes it easier to take and makes us more motivated to take them. And if that improves your health, that is wonderful, because whatever you have to do to get healthy, that is a good way of doing it. The only issue I have are two things. One is because, like I said, it's used kind of as a judgment. And number two, they're rarely cheap. Usually they cost a whole lot more than what we can do elsewhere and in other ways. But so when using any substance for any reason to get healthy that is not an FDA approved medication or a compounded medication that has been created by a pharmacist, with using the exact same substances that are in prescribed medications that have been approved by the FDA, there's a few things you need to watch for. Number one, your liver enzymes. Before starting anything, you should have your liver enzymes checked. And then after about 3 months, have them checked again. If you see a change, then what you're doing may be the reason that your liver is fighting against, has to detoxify whatever it is you're taking. And therefore, that means there's something in that substance that is toxic, either because of the amount that it's in too high of an amount, or it has some additive that just really isn't for human consumption. And so often what I'll see is a normal low liver enzyme, and then rechecked will say a normal high liver enzyme. So that's why it's important to know your numbers, not just whether something's good or not. Or, yeah, my doctor said my numbers were good. Well, they may have been within normal range, but there can also be an abnormal change within that range. And so that's also important to know. The other is if noticing that when taking something and it acts immediately, that's a medication. Whether it's described as a medication or not, it is. The reason is food, even food as medicine, any process that is natural is slow. Taking vitamins, the benefit of vitamins is a slow process. The benefit of food change is a slow process. The benefit of muscle work is a slow process. The mental work that required to get your cortisol levels down is a slow process. The benefit of getting good sleep to your body is a slow improvement. Drinking fluids every single day is a slow improvement. And so when something is taken and it's rapid, like within days you feel the difference, that is a medication, whether it's described as one or not. And if you take something, whether it's a pill, a powder, a tea of any kind, and you feel the difference when you don't take it, then it's definitely a medication. I have a whole lot of energy when I do this. And then when I don't take it, I slump. More than likely, that means it's got caffeine in it. And caffeine isn't always safe at high doses. Or it has some type of stimulant in it, which can be in there. It can be a compound of a stimulant. It can be a compound of methamphetamine, which is amphetamine, which is what we use for ADHD medication, which in ADHD, it actually causes a suppression in hyperactivity, but in humans, it doesn't, and everybody else. So often, if you're taking something and you notice your heart rate's going up a little bit, your hand's starting to shake a little bit, or if you stop taking it, you get a headache, or you start feeling withdrawal symptoms, there's something in that is addictive and habit forming on purpose, because it makes you keep buying it. Compounds can be made to mimic just about anything. And if something doesn't come out of a pharmacy that is regulated in some way, either an 503A, 503B, FDA approved medication by prescription, it can really be just about anything. I know for a fact there was a substance being put out that had thyroid medication in it. Well, it was a thyroid compound mimicking thyroid hormone, which for someone who may have low thyroid, that's fine. But if you don't, it can cause all sorts of problems. But what it did do is it caused weight loss, because our thyroid is our metabolism hormone. And so what it did is it knocked it straight up. And then there's other natural compounds, like there's other roots like ashwagandha that are mood stabilizers, so they can bring down cortisol. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you know it's in there, because it can interfere with other medications that you're taking. Or it can also have a withdrawal effect if you stop taking it and cause rebound depression. So again, natural simply means no assistance whatsoever. As soon as it's assisted, then it's not natural anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you know what you're taking, you understand that the scientific studies that are being talked about may not be the scientific studies on that particular substance. It also understands that the benefits that are being touted may not be the actual substance that's in what's being taken, is just similar to it, or in amounts that were never tried or tested. And so that's the reason why it's important to then understand, if you start noticing you're urinating a whole lot more when you're taking something, it's a diuretic. And basically all it's doing is pulling fluid out of your system and straining your kidneys. Get your liver checked, get your renal function checked, and know what every single substance is, including the fillers, are in whatever it is that you're taking, to make sure that it's safe. Because like I said, there are many, 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 many natural things that are toxic. There are a lot of natural poisons. Mushrooms are a good example. So I'm going to step off my soapbox for a minute, and if you have any questions, you can ask me them now. There was one thing. Oh, that was the other thing I did want to repeat. If something acts immediately, it's a medication, regardless of how it's labeled. And I do want to repeat that because I often hear people say, I take this and I feel great immediately. I feel great right away. Well, then it's some medication, even if it's not being touted as one, even if it's over the counter, because there are a lot of over the counter medications. We know this: Tylenol, ibuprofen, allergy medications. They were all once prescribed. They used to be prescription medications, and now they're over the counter. But we wouldn't call them natural because they're manufactured. So let me see here. So I have a little bit of an admirer I need to block. Someone who says they love me for some reason. Okay, I love me too. All right. Hi, all. Hi, Marsha. Hi, Elizabeth. So Kwana Price says, good evening, Dr. Toomer. It's funny your session is on this topic. I wanted something called black walnut for a cleanse for parasites. Do you know anything about this herb? So there are natural things that can be used to cleanse the bowel for parasites. But if you truly have parasites, then you need to be treated properly with a medication. Parasites of different types there are fluke parasites, there are roundworm parasites, there are amoebic parasites and their brain. So some are brain eating, some are liver eating, some are stay in your intestines, and they basically absorb nutrients that should be going to you, but instead they're going to the worm. And if that's the case, don't chance it. Don't play with things that are being touted on the internet as being cleansers. Go to a physician and make sure you actually have a parasite. And the reason is, if you take something that completely strips your bowel of everything that's in it, that also gets rid of the good bacteria. The bacteria that helps regulate all the other things that happen in your body. Many people refer to our gut biome or the gut bacteria as our second brain. You remove that brain and you basically end up in a situation where your body's dysregulated. So if you truly feel you have parasites, then get treated properly with proper medication. If you're just doing a cleanse of some kind, which are really unnecessary, because cleanses, basically your body is a really, really efficient organism. It cleanses itself. Bowel movements are a form of cleansing. Urination is a form of cleansing. Breathing is a form of cleansing. Sweating is a form of cleansing. You don't have to do anything to cleanse your body. It does it on its own. So, no, I do not recommend black walnut. I don't know a lot about it, but I do know a lot about cleanses, and I do know a lot about parasites. You don't want to play around with parasites, and you don't want to and the thing is, unless it's so what cleanses do essentially is they push things out mechanically. That doesn't take care of the eggs that parasite may have laid. It doesn't take care of the parasite that may have gotten into the bloodstream and traveled to other parts of the body. And so you need something that actually attacks the mechanism of that organism that will stop it and kill it and make sure it does not reproduce. And if it does reproduce, it has to kill the reproductive entity as well, like the eggs. So that's my answer. And usually parasitic, you can check your stool. You can have it done at your doctor's office. They'll check your stool. They can check your blood for different items, organisms, if you think you have one. So Denise says, hello, watching from Pennsylvania. Hello, Denise. Nice to see you. Good evening from Detroit. Woohoo, Michigan in the house. I'm from Ann Arbor originally. Hi, Lynn. Do you treat sugar flour addiction with GLP-1s? Absolutely. So the reason that people are addicted to sugar and flour is because their brain needs carbohydrates to think that to regulate the rest of the body. It is our brain that tells the rest of the body what to eat and how to eat based on the signals it's getting. When there is insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes, the signal getting to the brain isn't getting to the brain. And so the brain says, okay, keep eating sugar, keep eating flour, keep eating bread. And so what GLP-1s do is it gets the signal into the brain so the brain stops sending the wrong signal to the rest of the body. So it immediately stops. I mean, well, GLP-1s start low and you titrate up at higher doses, and everyone has a golden dose. That golden dose means that all your symptoms are being controlled, your metabolic status has been corrected, and you still have an appetite to eat a regular diet and all the nutrients that you need. And so GLP-1s absolutely treat sugar and flour addiction because sugar and flour addiction is caused by glucose dysregulation, and GLP-1s are glucose dysregulating correctors. I hope that answers your question. Frederick Brown Adams says this is very informative. Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. All of my videos, I have over 300 videos of lots of different topics. And if there are other topics that you'd like me to talk on, you can write to me at help@drtumor.com. I'm going to put it in the comments, and you can give me, or questions even, because a lot of times those questions will end up as talking points for my Tuesday talks. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Tumor. I was just going to use it for cleansing. Thanks again for your expertise. Just make sure that you check to see if there's any contraindication for using it for any reason, because a lot of times substances are really, really good in small doses, but in higher doses, they're toxic, or it can interfere with some medication. So if you're on medication, make sure you check to make sure that's not going to cause a problem. Denise says, question, I'm in maintenance on Zepbound 5 milligrams. Wonderful. I've been at the same weight. Recently, I caught a cold and my weight dropped after forcing myself to eat the same while sick. Wondering why? Because most of your energy went to recovery. And more than likely, you were resting. You were resting far more when you were sick than when you weren't. The other is, depending on what you were doing, like drinking more, or using substances like vitamin C, ginger, or zinc, or if you are taking anything for your cold, it can actually create a situation where your body, your metabolic status improves. The other thing, if you're taking any cold medicine in and of itself is an appetite suppressant. And so although you may have been forcing yourself to eat, you may not have been eating as many calories. So there's lots of different reasons, but usually they're recovery reasons. And your body just bounces right back once the cause is gone away. Deborah says, very informative. Thank you. And again, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go and do that. And what I'll do is put the link to my YouTube channel in the comments right after this video on Facebook. And if you're already on YouTube, you can just click on it and do that. So what is your opinion on NAD injections or capsules and Lipo-B and Lipo-C shots? Lipo-B and Lipo-C has not been proven to show any improvement whatsoever. It is not a naturally occurring substance that our body naturally needs. However, when it comes to NAD, that's not the case. We actually do need NAD. It's in our cells. It is what our body uses along with the byproducts of food to kind of go into a cycle that's inside our mitochondria, inside of our cells, the powerhouse of our cells, to create energy. And NAD starts to drop as we get older. It is not widely regulated, but it is beneficial. The pills are a little harder, the capsules, simply because NAD is a nucleic acid, which basically means it's a protein. And acid in our stomach, it is the most powerful acid in existence, hydrochloric acid, and it breaks down proteins very, very, very efficiently, which is why it's the first thing everything hits in our stomach. It hits when we eat because it's an acid that just breaks everything apart. And so, except fat, but that's another story for another day. So NAD, when taken as a pill, generally gets broken down. NAD injections are far more efficient and far more effective. But we really don't know the amount that is effective. And that's the problem. And we really don't know the amount that is detrimental to individuals. And in full disclosure, I actually am on NAD because I get asked about it a lot. And I don't recommend anything that I can't use myself. I know that it's safe. And so the jury's out. I've only taken a couple of injections of it. But as I go along, I will report what's happening. But because, it is the science is sound. Let me just put it that way. The science for NAD injections is quite sound. And I think it would be beneficial, especially if you're older. Lipo-B and Lipo-C hasn't shown much benefit. Although there are some people who swear by it, but then there's also placebo effect with any medication that you take. So I've never been a big fan of Lipo-B and Lipo-C. Never tried it myself either. I hope that answers your question. Can someone have a craving for carbs if they are not insulin resistant? Yes. Well, let me put it this way. There are two reasons why we crave something. One is because the pleasure centers in our brain gets triggered. Dopamine gets released when we eat something. And the other is because our brain's not getting what the substance that it needs. And usually it's because insulin is not working well on the cell to get the glucose into it. There are lots of reasons why someone can be insulin resistant. Not all of them is irreversible. So high stress, chronic stress can cause insulin resistance. And so by reducing your stress, you reduce your insulin resistance and therefore you reduce your craving for carbs. But then there's others that can be reversed, but the cause isn't. Like menopause causes insulin resistance by having cortisol unopposed that then causes insulin resistance, and it makes us gain weight in a certain way, particularly through the middle, and it changes our metabolic status. Menopause, I know people talk a lot about it being a hormonal issue. It is, but it causes a metabolic issue once it hits. Polycystic ovary syndrome is another. A lot of people are walking around not knowing that they have it, and the only symptom is that they crave certain things. When they eat certain things, they gain weight very easily. Infertility is another issue. You often also get darkening around the mouth and hair growth in places that you wish you didn't. And so, but when you crave carbs, there's one of two things. It's either because it's hitting your pleasure centers, which can be there also with insulin resistance, and then insulin resistance. So acting like a diabetic will help reduce your cravings. And that means eating meals that are primarily protein, trying to keep your cortisol levels down through mindfulness, which basically means enjoying the world that's around you, trying to help relax, doing things like Pilates, yoga, meditation, prayer, whatever it takes, doing things you enjoy, being around friends, being around family, having a hobby, whatever it takes to kind of relax you. That is good. Then having muscle, building muscle will help change your metabolic status. And so that will help improve your body's regulation of glucose, because that's really how we gain weight and lose weight, is through the regulation of glucose, through hormone regulation. There's no other way to lose weight other than drop water and get dehydrated or drop fat. And if you're dropping fat, it is a hormonal regulation, whether we want it to be or not. And so anything we use to do that is affecting our hormones. And so let me see. I'm trying to go up a little bit. I just missed your, very good. So yeah. And it also depends on what real cravings are. We tend to want carbohydrates when we're tired and when we're hungry, because if we're hungry, it's a quick jolt of food. Our body starts breaking down carbohydrates in our mouth. And so our brain knows food's coming. And so we often reach for carbs when we're hungry. Um, so I hope that answers your question. But so the answer is maybe. So no, craving carbs doesn't automatically mean you have insulin resistance, but craving carbs means something else is being dysregulated, and that's what's making you want to eat the carbs. Anitra Patterson, hey cuz, how are you? Good evening. What do you think about Mounjaro injections for weight loss? Is it safe? Okay, so absolutely it's safe, but this is the thing. Now, tirzepatide is the generic name. Mounjaro is the name of the brand for diabetes, and Zepbound is the name of the medication for weight loss. They are all safe and effective for weight management when prescribed properly, when managed properly, and when monitored properly. Yes, it's safe. It is actually the best. And it is not only good for weight loss. Weight loss is simply a side effect of metabolic correction. But what it does, it also protects against heart disease. It protects against dementia. It protects against liver and kidney issues. It's being studied. It's anti-inflammatory. It's now being studied for in cancer treatment, saying that the inflammatory process in cancers can be controlled through GLP-1s. I have been prescribing them for 15 years. I have actually been on a GLP-1 for 14 years. It saved my life. It maintained my heart when my heart was failing, and it helped prevent it from failing further. So yes, they're safe and they're effective, and when used properly. However, they are highly dangerous, just like any medication. They are highly dangerous when misused and abused. And that all these reports we're seeing is generally that people misusing and abusing them. Lou says, how about insulin resistance in kids and teens? How do you navigate that? Unfortunately, it's genetic. And so the way you navigate it is by providing meals that are high in protein, by keeping children active in some way that their muscles are being utilized and being built, and by making sure they have good mental outlets for stress and stress relieving. And then, and you don't focus on weight. If you're dealing with children and you focus on weight, it is counterproductive. You'll actually cause them stress that will make them gain weight, and it will also cause them a lot of self-esteem issues. What you do is you give them things that improve their self-esteem, and the rest will take care of itself. And so you just kind of make things fun. Teens and kids like to cook. Help them, be involved in the grocery shopping. Let them. The best way of doing it actually with children is to make them your coach. Make them your health coach. Tell children, listen, I'm trying to get healthy and I really want to eat well and I want to be able to exercise and I want you to be my accountability partner. Will you do that for me? That is the most effective way to get children to do anything because they love bossing their parents around. And so if you make them their coach, that actually is very, very helpful because they end up learning in the process, and they may not do it right away, but at some point as they become adults, it will kick in. It's not going to be immediate all the time, but it is going to be beneficial right away. There are so many doctors against GLP-1s for weight loss. It was working for me. My doctor left and the new doctor said, you don't need it, and slammed me to a sudden stop. Now I'm back 20 pounds. I'm so upset. This was the only thing that was. Just email me and I'll help. I'll find you someone who is nearby. If you want to see someone in person, I can find you several doctors who can help through telehealth, who take insurance. I particularly don't take insurance, but I help people get the prescription if they're having difficulty. Unfortunately, In medicine, as we know, there's a lot of prejudice and bias, and unfortunately, a lot of that bias is around weight loss and having obesity. If since your new doctor is not well versed in GLP-1s, P1s, and you know it was effective for you, it was only working because you had a metabolic status that needed to be corrected, find a new doctor. Just find a new doctor. That's not a doctor that's effective for you, so find a new one. Because your weight gain is a clear indication that you needed it and that it was correcting. So weight is simply a side effect. It is not the cause. The cause is metabolic dysregulation, and the medication was correcting it. So if you write to me at help@drtumor.com, tell me where you are, tell me what's going on, remind me of this story, and I'll help you find somebody. The other thing you can do also is go to the Obesity Medical Association. They have a directory of doctors in the country, if you're in the United States. And the Obesity Action Coalition also has a directory for physicians who are well-versed in GLP-1 medications. Okay, so that's 3 options. Contact me, and look in those directories. I hope that helps, Tracy. But I'm sorry that happened to you. That shouldn't have. Are cortisol levels something that can be measured through blood and lab work? Not well. All those things online that tell you know your cortisol levels immediately, they're scams. The only way you can know, because cortisol level fluctuates all day long, all night long, and in any given situation. So the only way to know what your cortisol levels are is through a 24-hour urine cortisol test. Or there's also called there's a suppression test you can use, but that's usually for checking your adrenal glands, which is where cortisol comes from. So in modern day life, our cortisol is up. Anything you have to do to bring your cortisol down is going to be beneficial. Your cortisol can't go too low unless you remove your adrenal glands, which nobody does unless there's a problem. So just assume your cortisol levels are high and do the work to drop it. When cortisol level is pathologically high beyond the normal insulin resistance and insulin issues that it causes, there are specific signs that is the case. And then you see an endocrinologist and they will test you. But for the average person, testing for cortisol is useless because it goes up and down all the time. You can check one time, it may be high. You check again an hour later and it's low. So spot checking cortisol is not helpful. And anyone who tells you that it is probably making money off the test. How do you take your GLP-1 for long-term treatment? Weekly. I mean, you take it for, okay, so it depends on why you're taking it. If you're taking it as a diabetic, you take it for life. If you're taking it for weight loss, it just depends. It depends on how much weight you needed to lose, how much you replace the medication with muscle and mindfulness. You've got to get your cortisol levels down and you've got to get your muscle up. Otherwise, the medication still has to do work. When you reach maintenance, you may have some reset. And when you do, you can sometimes spread out the dose or drop the dose. Knowing that, however, life changes that created the problem in the first place can come back. So if your stress levels go up, your dysregulation goes up right along with it. The medication won't be enough and you'll start to see some weight gain or some, glucose dysregulation. If you are in a stressful job and you have high cortisol, insulin resistance because of it, and you change jobs and all of a sudden your stress levels drop, well, then you may not have the insulin resistance because of the high cortisol anymore. And therefore the medication is no longer needed. It's the reason why people lose weight on vacation. It's because relaxation changes your cortisol levels, which changes what your body does with food. Because when your cortisol levels are high, your body automatically tries to make fat out of the food you eat, no matter how healthy it is. Great idea. Let the kids be your coach. Thank you for that. That's what I did. Children they're brutal when holding you accountable, I tell you, but they learn a lot while doing it. Oh, what's your email? Oh, I thought I put it in there. I'll write it again. It's help at drtumor.com. And you can send me questions, send me comments, just ask and I can help. That's why it's called Help at Dr. Tumor. Any other questions? Well, if you think of anything later, you can write to me at help@drtumor.com, or you can go after the video and put in the comments. Anyone who's written to me there knows I do respond. I check them. I have my notifications on, and so I do check. And I'd respond to them. And if you have topics that you'd like to ask me about, you or would like me to speak on, you can always tell me. And so yeah. So, and again, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's where all my videos are. I have shorts from these videos, and then you can see the shorts. And then if you decide you want more, you can go to the longer video to watch it. All right. Well, again, thank you. Good night. And I appreciate you all being here. And I'll see you next Tuesday on Dr. Tumor Talks on Tuesday. Good night.